Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
So let me just ask you point blank, folks. Do you think that Roy Moore is a creep who did the deed? You do. You do. You do. As of today and after the mall, after the report about the mall, you're done. So I've got unanimity in here. Everybody thinks that creeping did the deed. Deed or deeds? Plural. Deeds. Just getting too much here to say that there's a conspiracy. Too much here to say that drive-bys are making it up. Greetings, folks. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh here behind the golden EIB microphone. Telephone number 800-282-2882 and the email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. Well, whether Judge Moore did the deed or deeds or not, what's really happening here, folks, if you really want to know, I mean, it's a multifaceted search and destroy mission here. But what's really driving this, do not doubt me on this, what's really driving this is Mitch McConnell saying to Steve Bannon, really? You think you're going to get your guys elected? You think you're going to get your guys elected and me kicked out of here? Really? Seriously? Okay, watch this. Don't forget that Judge Moore is, Trump did not endorse him, but the Steve Bannon, I don't know, endorsed, chose, got behind, supports, what have you. And Bannon has been very upfront about the objective he has, and that's to get Mitch McConnell out of the Senate. And so I don't think, even if all we had was one allegation against Judge Moore, this was going to be it for Judge Moore. Didn't matter because this is now being used to send a message to Bannon and his group that you think you're going to get rid of me. Well, take a look at what's going to happen every time you try. So that clearly is a factor here. And there's much more to the news today on this. It's just added details and Judge Moore denying he even knew this new accuser, saying he's unfamiliar with the restaurant and the waitress, and claiming that the babe that Gloria Allred produced yesterday is totally just making it up. So we'll delve into that. We'll just basically fill in the blanks of the details. Attorney General Jeff Sessions testifying today before the House Judiciary Committee. And it had moments of high comedy when Sheila Jackson Lee got her turn to start asking questions. This is the representative from Houston who took over the seat for the esteemed Mickey Leland when he was killed in an accident in Ethiopia. He was on a mission there to feed the poor, and he died there. I mean, a plane crash or some such thing. I forget the specific details, but she took over his seat. She is the member of Congress who, on a visit to NASA, was looking at the Mars rover. They had the video turned on. The Mars rover was sending pictures back from Mars. Sheila Jackson Lee asked NASA administrators if they were going to have it go over to where the astronauts had planted the flag. Of course, the NASA administrators had to deal with that with much diplomacy because, of course, we've never been to Mars. And as far as we know, there's not an American flag there. We do know that if there was an American flag there, Colin Kaepernick would take a knee, even on Mars. It's on the moon. And so the NASA administrators had to very diplomatically remind her, no, you're getting our moon and the planet Mars confused. Oh, yeah. So she didn't have much time when she got to her turn to answer or ask questions, and she really didn't want any answers. I mean, it's just rat-tat-tat, one allegation, one accusation after another. And Jim Jordan, congressman from Ohio, had a very pointed question to Sessions about why he has not appointed a special counsel on the Clintons. Speaking of the Clintons, we have great audio sound bites coming up The drive-bys are now realizing that they gave Bill Clinton a pass back in the 1990s with all of these women that he was involved with, the interns that he mistreated, women with whom he had had affairs and dalliances, the allegation of rape by Juanita Broderick, other women coming forth with stories of sexual harassment and abuse by Bill Clinton. And the drive-by media today very, all of a sudden, aware that they gave Clinton a pass. So what does that mean? What it means is, since they realized that the media treated Bill Clinton's accusers badly, didn't show them enough respect, now it is time for a day of reckoning for Donald Trump. Because the drive-bys gave Clinton a pass, they now have to double down on the scrutiny of Donald Trump. That is actually how they're playing it. That is actually their excuse and what they are saying. Now, I want to run something by you, and we'll get to the Sessions sound bites and the Roy Moore stuff and all of the rest that is in the news today. Trump's trip to visit the Chi-Coms specifically has been a grand slam home run that you're not going to hear about. It has been, Trump knocked this whole trip to the Chi-Coms, and the rest of it as well, but specifically the time and attention that he gave to the Chi-Coms here, he just hit the ball out of the park precisely because he knows how to negotiate with them. He knows what is important to them. And he used it, his granddaughter, 6 years old, sang and recited poetry in Mandarin. And the drive-bys thought, what a cheap show. What an absolutely cheap show. That's beyond the presidential pale. How transparent can that be? Having his 6-year-old learn Chinese just for this trip, that is child abuse, is sort of what they were saying. It turns out that was a fundamental and key element to the success of the meetings with the Chi-Coms. And so details coming up. I want to run a theory by you. I want to see what you think of this. We're swerving now to the National Football League, since I happened to mention Colin Kaepernick taking a knee on Mars, if there is a flag there. You know, folks, I've always reminded you, because it's true, that advertising is always aimed at young people. And it's not because advertisers like young people versus old people. It's that young people's minds haven't yet been fully made up. Their brand preferences have not been permanently stamped in their psyche and their brains and their behavior. This is why beer commercials, for example, are advertised for teenagers and people in their early 20s. You don't advertise beer for people in their 40s, 50s. They've got their brand. They're not going to change. By the time they're 40 or 50, if you're a beer manufacturer, any other advertiser, your chance at getting them en masse has long since passed. So you have to focus, and all advertising does, on the young, and primarily the demographic of 18 to 24, and at its widest expanse, 18 to 34. In addition, I've always pointed out to you that advertising, good advertising, effective advertising, is a window into the American culture, because advertising agencies and their creative people must devise ways to reach their target audience in ways that their audiences are going to want to watch or read or absorb the commercial message, not reject it or not tune it out. And so advertising creative directors have to ascertain cultural preferences, cultural existence, cultural norms of the demographic they are aiming at. So given that I have oftentimes reminded everybody of this, let us now turn our attention to the NFL and what is happening there. And let me ask you another question. Could all of this that is happening in the NFL right now be being done on purpose? Could we be witnessing a marketing plan that has not been announced? And good marketing plans are never announced, they're just executed. A marketing plan is designed to separate people from their money. You don't tell them how you're going to do it because that prepares them for it. You just execute the plan. What if, ladies and gentlemen, the National Football League believes all of the polling and survey data that shows American millennials are over 50% socialist? That an even greater number of them admire socialism and dictators and tyrants. Those polls are out there. We have mentioned them to you. We've chalked it up to the lousy American public and higher education system. But nevertheless, the data is there. We know of the snowflake tendencies on college campi. We know pretty much where American millennials are in mass. Not all of them, of course. There are exceptions to everything, but the majority of American millennials appear to be perfectly fine with socialism. They have sympathies toward minority groups. They are, in many instances, what would be termed social justice warriors. And so I'm asking you, what if allowing the protests of the flag, allowing what appear to be protests of the military, allowing all of these things that the players are doing that echoes behavior of social justice warriors? What if all of this is a marketing plan to get millennials interested in the game? Remember, the NFL doesn't worry about trying to get 45, 50, even 35, 40-year-old people interested in the game. The evidence is they had them. The evidence is, the NFL up until the last 2 years has been the most profitable business in the world, sports business. It has been the most popular. It was on a steady financial, both gross revenue and profit uptick. And then 2 years ago, the ratings began to decline a little bit. And that coincided with what? It coincided with all this news blowing up about concussions and how dangerous the game is to play. And I know that argues against what I'm saying because you have more and more young parents. I don't want my kids playing this game. That game it scrambles kids' brains. It ruins people, makes them sick, commit suicide at age 45. I don't want my kids doing that, Mabel. But on the other hand, if you're the NFL, you have to find a way to get young people interested in the game. And if television viewing is down, the actual sitting in front of a TV set and watching is down, if they're watching by way of handheld screens like iPhones and iPads, well, you don't own their attention in those circumstances. When you're in home and you're sitting on a sofa chair and you're watching the game on TV, you've made a commitment to watch it. When you're running around out there and you have your phone in the palm of your hand or whatever, you're doing a lot of other things while that opportunity to watch an NFL game is on. So what if what's happening here is a purposeful marketing plan designed to, and one other key element, everything's become politicized. Everything in our culture is politicized, and young millennials accept it. So you politicize the game, you steer it to the left where you think most of young people are because you believe the polling data and the surveys. So what if all this is a conscious effort to take a hit for a while angering your current but aged fan base in an effort to attract the young demographic of 18 to 34, where they live, how they think. And if you believe all the stuff about how liberal they are and how much they admire socialism, then that's what you would want your league to appear to be, at least sympathetic. So if they buy into the idea that millennials are indeed social justice warriors, then would it make sense for the NFL to be doing what they're doing to try to grab those young people and convert them into lifetime fans and customers? Well, once you get them, what do you sell to them? That's another thing. I mean, that'll have to change too. But that's you figure that out later. The first thing you have to do is get them, and if they're turned off by the injury aspect, if they're turned off by the scrambling of brains, CTE, if they're turned off by all of the stuff going on, well, why not turn the league into basically a junior league version of the Democrat Party, where everything's litigated, everything's in court, lawyers are involved in everything. You really go after domestic abuse. You go after spousal. You go after the mistreatment of women like it's never been gone after. You put your players in jail. You try to put them in jail. You hold them to high standards. You do, even if they're your marquee players. The NFL is doing all of this. Now, if this is their plan, I don't know if they calculated just how many of the existing fan base would tell them to take a hike. I don't know that their marketing plan accommodated the ratings plunge and the financial hit, such as the Papa John sponsor abandoning. I don't know if they calculated all that into it. And I'm not sure that this is right. I'm just throwing the question out there. Anyway, let's take a brief time out. We'll come back, organize everything I have left here, and present it right after this. While I'm on the subject of the president and the Chi-Coms, this morning on Air Force One, on the way back to the United States after the Asian trip, Trump went back and talked to the reporters in the back of the plane. The reporters said, why are those relationships with China and others so important? And is there a risk of getting too close to President Xi Jinping?
No, relationship is always important. It doesn't mean it's necessarily close. It's really a relationship based on respect. To me, a relationship based on respect is much more important than anything else, including friendship, because this is really something they have to respect our country, and they have not respected our country for a long period of time.
Now, this is really key, folks. This is that may sound like not quite a throwaway answer, but look, he's really, really on to something here. The difference between respect and friendship. Now, the left, their attitude about world affairs, global security, is that the United States poses the greatest problem. No, they really do. We pose the greatest problem because we're the superpower. We have the biggest arsenal. We have more nukes than anybody else. We're the only nation on earth that's ever used nukes. And they are just inherently predisposed to the idea the United States is the problem in the world, particularly when a Republican is in the White House. Reagan, George W. Bush, now Trump. And so the left thinks that the best way to ameliorate this danger posed to the world by the United States is to become friends with all of our enemies, to become friends with all of the world leaders, and even if we have to give them free health care. And Trump is saying, friendship, schmenship. That's not what's on the docket here. I'll explain in a minute. Have my brain tied behind my back, as always, my friend, just to make things fair here, fair and sustainable. For the callers, 800-282-2882. How many of you remember during the presidential campaign, particularly Trump's rallies in his campaigns, when he would constantly appear to be criticizing the Chi-Coms? He called them essentially, well, he didn't call them cheaters, but well, maybe so. He talked about how what they were doing to us, how they were unfair in trade, how their currency manipulation was very harmful and damaging. And then he lashed out at American leaders for being stupid idiots for doing the deals they had done with the Chi-Coms. Now, I had a lot of people during those instances say, I wish he'd shut up about that. We don't want to make them mad. You don't talk about them that way. I said, no, you're missing the point. Talk like that does not make the Chi-Coms mad. It makes them smile. When Trump runs around and basically says the Chi-Coms are running rings around American leaders, that's enabling them to really manipulate things in their favor, they smile. They like being acknowledged as winners. They like being acknowledged as smart and brilliant and people that prevail. Now, the American way of looking at negotiations with foreign powers who might be said to be enemies is you try to come up with what's the typical deal is where both sides give something up, where both sides are traditionally unhappy with it, but they get a compromise, and that's said to be a good deal. That's not how the Chi-Coms do it. The Chi-Coms do not give up anything in exchange for some sort of agreement. That's not their mentality. The Chi-Com mentality, no matter what they do, is win. Win, which happens to also be Trump's. The Chi-Coms, if whatever it is, whatever foreign international deal, treaty, arrangement, negotiation, whatever it is, if they don't benefit from it, and to hell with whatever else happens to anybody else, they're not going to do it. The Chi-Coms do not think like Westerners do, in the sense that, well, you give a little here and you get back something here, and you end up with a deal where none of us get all that we want, but we each get some or enough that that's not how they go about it. They don't give up anything. There's no reason for them to. They don't think that way. That's not in their vocabulary. That's not in their mindset whatsoever. So in negotiating with them, you have to understand that about them. You still have to have arrangements, deals, what have you. And that's why Trump talked about respect in this soundbite being far more important than friendship. To the left, friendship with our enemies, that's so important. He said that if we can make them like us, they won't provoke Trump into nuking them. If we can make them like us, it'll be safer. All of this namby-pansy stuff. But that's not how you deal with the Chi-Coms. If it doesn't benefit them, whatever you're trying to get done, they won't do it. Let's look at North Korea. North Korea is the third party here. What does Trump want? Trump wants North Korea silent, shut down, stopped, what have you, without having to fire a shot. Trump thinks that the Chi-Coms can do it. But they're not going to do it just because you ask them to. They're not going to do it if you try to leverage them into doing it. They're not going to, whether the Norks are allies or not, the Chi-Coms are not going to do anybody a favor to make the world safer or anything else. They're just not going to do a favor. There's got to be something in it for them before they'll do anything like that. And so you have to come up with something that benefits the Chi-Coms that also accomplishes something that you want. You have to come up with something that once it's done and over with, the Chinese can run around and say they won or they got a great benefit or what have you. So what was the benefit? The benefit that Trump established with the Chi-Coms was acknowledged and favorable trade outcomes. Remember, Trump began negotiating with the Chi-Coms during the campaign. He laid down the law. He told the Chi-Coms that they're cheaters. He told the Chi-Coms they've been running roughshod over the United States, and the days are going to end. When Trump's in the White House, the Chi-Coms are going to get away with this because the days of stupid Americans are going to be over. And he focused on trade. Remember, everybody, okay, understand that, but everybody was saying, why so much focus on trade? What's the big deal? NAFTA here, every day trade it, because that's where Trump was going to go to get what he needed out of the Chi-Coms. So after 2 years of publicly threatening the Chi-Coms with tariffs and all kinds of frozen trade opportunities, the North Korean situation presented an option, and it was used. And Trump was able to propose normalizing trade arrangements that were beneficial to the Chi-Coms, not as beneficial as they had been. It was a far different Trump from what was on the campaign. He appeared to be giving up significant ground when he hadn't at all. He'd been asking for much more than he was ever going to ask for during the campaign. In exchange for this new Trump, this reasonable Trump that was proposing normalized trade relationships and agreements, Trump secured an agreement from the Chi-Coms to deal with the North Koreans a little bit more strictly, beneficial to the world and America than they had been predisposed to. I don't know what the final result of all this was, but I know what the objective was. The objective was for Trump to lean on Xi Jinping to essentially eliminate the North Korean threat. But they're not going to do that just because you ask them. They're certainly not going to do it if you demand it. They're certainly not going to do it to make the world safer. They don't care about that. All they care about is when it's all over, being able to say they won, or that whatever happened, they benefited from. And if friendship is your objective, you're never going to pull things like that off. But respect, whole different thing. And that is what Trump was saying in that bite with the media on the trip to Air Force One back to the United States. One little semi-related story. You heard about the 3 UCLA basketball players that were also in China, that they were being held in jail for shoplifting? And all during the weekend, the stories about this were dire, that Trump, the American State Department, was not going to succeed in getting these guys out of prison, out of jail, or what have you. The Chi-Coms wanted to drop the hammer. You don't do this. You don't come over and shoplift from them. They jail Chinese citizens who do it. Well, after the conversation that Trump had with Xi Jinping, this guy who has amassed Mao-style power now. He's the most powerful Chi-Com leader since Mao Zedong. Or, I'm sorry, Mao Zedong. They change the guy's name pronunciation frequently. Ever since Trump had his personal conversation with Xi Jinping, these basketball players are going to be returned to the U.S. after having been detained by the Chi-Coms for shoplifting. 3 UCLA basketball players arrested in China for allegedly shoplifting while their team was in the country for a tournament last week have been released and were flying back home today. Trump did it. Now you might say, Trump didn't do it. The Chi-Coms made a big show out of holding them, but they were always going to let them go. Really? You know that? I'm just telling you, this trip that Trump has finished and is now on the way home from, this was it was a killer economic and foreign policy trip. You're not going to hear about it. The drive-bys may themselves not even know. I mean, they had some reporters on the trip, but this stuff isn't going to be reported as it actually happened. The last thing that can happen is that Trump can be given credit for anything. About all you're going to know about this trip is that Trump shook hands with Putin, and that Putin looked like he owned Trump, and that Putin looked like Trump was just a little puppy dog, almost embarrassed to be in Putin's presence, because Trump knows that Putin is so much smarter and so much tougher. That's about all you're going to hear about what happened on the trip. But don't doubt me. It was a great success. We've got more coming back after this. Get this headline, ladies and gentlemen. Ready for this? 77% of Democrats with 4-year college degrees. What is that, a BA or a BS? What's a 4-year degree? Just a bachelor or whatever? BA, fine. I don't have one, so I don't really know the lexicon. 4 years, I know well, I know what it is. I'm just the initials. Here's the point. 77% 77%, let's say it this way, 77% of college-degreed Democrats think sex is not determined at birth. One more time. 77, it's a poll, 70 from the Pew Research Center. Not some outfit from East Overy, Wisconsin. This is the Pew Research Center. 77% of Democrats with a 4-year degree think sex is not determined at birth. Put another way, only 23% of college-educated Democrats think that sex is determined at birth, i.e. in the womb. Another way of putting this, 77% of Democrats with 4-year college degrees think that sex, your gender, is chosen. %77% of 4-year degree Democrats, college degree Democrats, think sex is not determined at birth. You realize what this means. You realize what we are up against here with this kind of, what in hell's name have these people been taught? And why? Oh, the doctors may say it's a boy or it's a girl, but that's not it. No, that's just what the doctor says. Your sex is not determined until you decide what you want to be. 77%. Anyway, I want to grab phones in this hour. We're going to start Los Angeles with Eddie. I'm glad you called, sir. Welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Maharishi, you are the Godhead.
Thanks, Eddie. I appreciate that.
Rush, I want to say I used to license movies to China, Japan, Korea, and then I negotiated for a Japanese company. And you are, right on the money that the Chinese are they're master negotiators. They always say yes, even when they say no. They're always smiling, shaking their head. You feel very comfortable dealing with them. And they give very, very little in the negotiation, and you're happy to get a deal from them, and then you realize, what happened?
Well, what you have to realize anytime you're going to deal with them is that whatever the end is, it has to be something they can say to everybody else and to themselves that they won it, that they won the negotiation. If there is mutual benefit in the deal, the mutual benefit has to greatly benefit them, far greater than the other participants in the deal. They don't have, the point is that the Chinese do not approach these things like Westerners do, where we will, they don't start out with throwaways. Let's put it that way. A common negotiating technique in the United States. Let's say that you're in negotiations for a new employment contract where you work, and you want $25 million and access to a King Air propeller, prop jet airplane. But instead you go and you ask for $50 million and a Boeing 727 or a Boeing 737, knowing full well you're not going to get it. Those are throwaways. You build in things that you really don't think you're going to get and you don't really want. You can throw them away to look like you are negotiating, to look like you are giving something up. Chi-coms don't do that. They just tell you what's going to be, what is. You have to know them going in to deal with them this way. And they don't respond to your throwaways. They know full well. It's cultural mindset differences. And there is no mutual assurance, there's no definition of a successful negotiation. Here is where both sides give something up, and maybe neither side is really totally happy, but that's a great deal. Not to them. They're not happy giving anything up. Not. You have to be able, in order to start, how do you get stuff out of them? You have to be able, when it's all over, the negotiation, whatever you're doing with the Chinese, at the end of it, whatever happens, they have to be able to say the benefit to them is undeniable. So in the case of Trump, North Korea is the elephant in the room. Trump wants help from Xi Jinping on neutralizing, what's his face, Kim Jong-un. But Xi Jinping's got no interest in doing that for the sake of humanity, for the betterment of the world. If getting rid of the North Koreans doesn't benefit the Chinese, to hell with it. He doesn't care the instability of the world, except as it might affect China. Okay, so that's the key. So you have to appeal to the Chinese on the basis that, look, I want to make a new trade deal with you. Now, remember, Trump started out on the campaign trail telling us he's going to be tough. The Chi-Coms have been getting away with murder because Americans are so stupid. But those days are over. The free ride of the Chinese is over. So they've been hearing that for 2 years. So they're expecting Trump to come in and strip everything away, take away all the benefits they have, all the advantages. He didn't do that. He gave them favorable trade deals, but they have to help us with Kim Jong-un. So neutralizing Kim Jong-un then equals a benefit to the Chi-Coms. That's what you have to strike. Look, it's far more complicated than this. I'm trying to tell you this in 20 seconds, okay? Which I did, by the way. Roy Moore, details, analysis coming up in the next hour, along with Jeff Sessions and his testimony before the House Judiciary Committee today. And you won't believe some of the wording in this Pew survey about the way college-educated Democrats think you get your sex, where you think you get it. It's amazing. That's exactly right. The party of science, the educated party of science, thinks that gender is not determined by how you were born. The party of science, the party of climate change, the party of irrefutable evidence of climate change, the party of all-knowing science wizardry. Greetings, my friends, and welcome back. It's Rush Limbaugh on the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Here we are at 800-282-2882 and the email address lrushmo@eibnet.us. So I have to tell you a couple of housekeeping things here before we get back to the quote-unquote news of the day. I checked the email during the break, and there were a couple that I saw. And essentially, I'm not going to read them word for word, but the point was, why are you spending the first hour of your program today talking about Chi-Coms and Trump and negotiate? Why aren't you talking about Roy Moore? Do you not realize what's happening in your own country? And I had to stop for a moment and consider this, because I've got my Roy Moore stack right here, and I have my Roy Moore sound bites over here, and I've got this and that over there. So why did I? Nothing is planned, folks. I don't script anything, and there's no blocks. There's no A block, B block, where the A block I talk about Roy Moore. When I open my mouth when this program starts, that's when I decide what I'm going to do. And the whole thing is improv. There is no planning. So I had to ask myself, why did I not go to Roy Moore? Well, there's two reasons. A, there's 3 hours here, and I'm going to get to Roy Moore at some point. But the more important reason is that because that's what everybody else is doing. You can't turn on the television, which I'm doing less and less of anyway. You can't go to Drudge Report or anywhere without Roy Moore here, Roy Moore there. And I've always been the guy that never plays or participates with conventional wisdom. If everybody else is doing X, I am likely not going to be. But it's not a conscious thing. In other words, I don't sit here and calculate, okay, everybody's talking Roy Moore, so I'm going to do something. It just happens. It's just my instincts. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not interested in certain aspects of the Roy Moore story. It is just that I think so much of it is trumped up anyway. I don't mean the charges. I just mean the media. It's all part of the daily soap opera, which is trash, destroy, get rid of Republicans. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. I'm getting weary showing up here and my first objective or first responsibility being to defend people. I'm just tired of it. And that's what largely much of conservative media has always been, because the left is constantly on the march. And every day they're attacking somebody else or some issue or something that does require defense. Because we're all in the arena of ideas. We're trying to prevent the perversion of the minds of our country. We're trying to prevent the pollution of the minds of our country. And every day the media, the left, is on the march, trying to pervert, trying to corrupt, trying to pollute, trying to get rid of Trump, trying to get rid of the next Republican, and there are just some days I'm not in the mood to just totally be on the defensive. And I guess today was one of those days where I just didn't feel like, and not defending more, but rather attacking motives of the media. I think you in this audience are fully informed now and fully educated on the modus operandi of the media and what their objective is. As I said, in fact, I did address it in the first hour. I think what really is happening here, Roy Moore is actually Steve Bannon being told by Mitch McConnell, oh, yeah, you think you're getting rid of me? Let me show you what's going to happen to everybody you nominate to try to get rid of me. Because Bannon has said that his objective is to get rid of Mitch McConnell, not just as leader of the Republicans, but out of the Senate. But certainly as he wants to oust McConnell as the Senate Republican majority leader. And so McConnell, he may look like a turtle, he may talk like a turtle, he may walk like a turtle, but the guy is not the turtle, he's the scorpion. And you are seeing the McConnell scorpion sting right now. And if it weren't Roy Moore, it would be somebody else that Bannon had chosen to support who had become a Republican candidate with the objective being to get rid of Mitch. So, but the ongoing details here, I mean, Gloria Allred, please give me a break. Do we have to talk about her again and her stupid daughter, Lisa Bloom? I mean, Allred's involved already. There ought to be giant clouds of doubt over everything she's saying. Whatever she's bringing forth, whatever woman she found to drag out of the bushes somewhere, there ought to be automatic doubt about it. There is with me, to the point that I don't even want to mess with it first. I mean, I'll get to it today, but I don't want to. I just don't go with the pack. That's it. But you people out there that are sending me these notes expecting me to get, you just need to be patient. It's 3 hours here. And we get to everything that matters, and we get to more stuff that you don't know that matters, that does matter eventually. And you end up always, yeah, I heard Rush talking about that a few days ago or a few weeks ago. You're going to hear, just like you're going to hear about Trump and his negotiations with the Chi-Coms and what it all, but when these media people get this Roy Moore stuff out of their system, they're never going to get the Russian collusion thing out of their system. There's the Sessions is another story today. We got a lot of audio soundbite support. Going to get to that. And then the other housekeeping thing. Some days doing the program, there are distractions. And I do my best to overcome them. Sometimes those distractions are within my eyesight. Today was one of those days. There were people in tears on the other side of the glass. They were in earnest conversation. Of course, I can't hear them. I'm speaking to you. But while I'm going on and on about how you negotiate with the Chi-Coms, now Trump is a champ at it, I'm watching a couple of people cry over it. So what in the world is going on? Could these people get a room or drop the shade or something? So at the top of the hour break, I had to go in there, had to inquire about it. And I found out that one of them had gone to a movie recently that had disturbed her terribly. What's the name of this movie? Bad Mom's Christmas. Christmas movies are all. I guess that would make sense. So what's so bad about it? And she said, I've never seen this kind of perversion. I've never heard of it. And they showed it. They showed it in the movie rush. It's horrible. And it's just what's happening to our country. I said, well, what was it? And so it was explained to me. And my reaction was, that's not new. I mean, that's been going on since I was in college. 35 years ago, longer, whenever I was there for, a couple days. Apparently what this movie has done, or what the movie does, is to depict a technique that young people use who want to get drunk or want to get high without having to eat or drink anything. So in this instance, bottles of beer are injected into a specific bodily cavity with the aid of a tube. And so the beer is then injected at a rapid speed into the colon, which should be the large intestine for those of you in Rio Linda, thereby avoiding the digestive system. It avoids the esophagus. You avoid the beer being swallowed down the esophagus into the stomach, they metabolized by the liver and the kidneys doing whatever they do to it, mixing with the bile that exists in your stomach, and then on its way to the colon. It just bypasses all of that and gives you a very quick hit. And this is a widely known, widely practiced way of achieving rapid intoxication. And some people do it they think they're not gaining weight. They're not getting the calories. The calories are not being metabolized. They're not going through the digestive system. And so all the calories in booze and beer are not counting, but the immediate high of the alcohol hit being essentially injected in there is delicious and wonderful. What do you mean? You haven't heard of this either? Now look, I'm such as we've established. I mean, compared to the guys in the news today, I'm pretty dull and boring. But I know about this. I haven't ever seen it. Do not misunderstand. But I know about this. There's nothing new about this. And you're from New York and you never heard of this? Well, it is something that has been generally associated with campus life. It's not something that responsible adults, except Wall Street adults, will do. It's largely, I don't know what the millennials. Good question. Could the NFL sell it to them? It would depend. For example, this would not mess with the pizza that you have eaten. You can't do this kind of thing with pizza. But you can do it with... No. I've explained this very fashionably and very respectably, and there's no 8-year-old asking, Mommy, what are they talking about? They're not interested. I've made sure to discuss this in ways that do not violate this program's family values requirements. Okay, you were at the movie with your mom, and you were out. Your mom didn't know about it. You didn't know about it. You went in there thinking it was going to be a family movie, Bad Mom's Christmas, and a fun movie. It was. I'm sure it was fun for the people doing this. So I guess the lesson is, if you've never heard of this, go see Bad Mom's Christmas, and you'll find out what this is. Okay, see, it's just one scene, and it had you in tears, and you were disturbed for the future of the country, and oh no, what's happening? I'm just trying to tell you there's nothing new about this. What's new is that somebody out there finally got the gonads to depict it on film, rather than having it remain something that happens in somebody's bedroom in a dormitory. Now, we have here another We got another 12 minutes here and still no more Roy Moore mentioned. This is going to make the Roy Moore story seem tame. See, there's a method here to the... No, I want to go back to this story it's in Breitbart. Neil Monroe wrote it, but it's the Pew Research Center. I just want to read to you some of the ways this thing is written. Here's the story again. 3 out of 4. It's more than 77% of college-educated Democrats think that sex is not determined at birth. So when your baby is born and the doctor, oh, look, it's a boy. No, it's not. That's never been right, according to 77% of college-educated Democrats. The main question, this was a survey that took place of 4,500 people between August and September. And the question is built on the phrase sex assigned at birth. That's the main question. The phrase was invented by transgender activists to help them claim that every person's sex is independent of their biology and that a newborn's sex should not be unfairly assigned by the doctors and parents who examine the newborn's biology and visible evidence. The Pew survey asked which statement comes closer to your views, even if neither is exactly right. Whether someone is a man or woman is determined by the sex they were assigned at birth, or someone can be a man or a woman even if that is different from the sex they were assigned at birth. Now, does something sound weird just in the way that is written? Here is from the write-up from the Pew story accompanying their survey. The survey finds that Democrats with a bachelor's degree or more are more likely than other Democrats to say a person's gender can be different from the sex they were assigned at birth. 77% of Democrats with a bachelor's degree or more say this, compared with 60% of Democrats with some college and 57% of those with a high school diploma or less. So the smartest Democrats are the least educated. The more educated the Democrats are, the stupider and more ignorant and literally crazy they happen to be. Most African Americans and a large percentage of Latinos seem to disagree that the parents and doctors are just guessing. In other words, they disagree with this idea that sex is not determined at birth. But here's what struck me. This is from the Pew survey question. Whether someone is a man or a woman is determined by the sex they were assigned. But what is this assigned at birth business? Who assigns the sex at birth? Well, they're talking about the doctors or the nurses. Look, you've just had a baby boy. That means you've had a boy because the doctors assigned male status to your baby. No, nature did. There was no assignation here. Somebody was not a boy because they were proclaimed to be, because the doctor decided to assign the kid the male gender. He was born male or he was born female. This is the transgenders and the LGBTQ WTF crowd trying to, what? Interfere, infect, get involved in all of this so that they can claim there are more of them than there really are. Because if you see, I find it interesting, homosexuality is not chosen. Remember? It is not. If you think homosexuality is chosen, you will pay the price. But here, transgenderism, why, it most certainly is a choice, Mr. Limbaugh. It most certainly, just because you're born with the equipment of a man, that doesn't make you a guy, is what they're all saying. You wonder why your kids are screwed up? I mean, look at the loco weeds teaching them. So now I've got emails. I never heard of that. I never heard of that, what you're talking about. Directly injecting booze into the colon and other people's. Oh, yeah, you should try it. Emails are running the gamut. Jim in Farmington, Missouri. Great to have you, sir, on the program today. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. Rush, how are you?
Very well, sir. Thanks.
Thank you for taking my call.
Uh-huh.
I've been a student of yours for quite some time, since the early 90s.
Appreciate that.
And I want to thank you for your book series. I just got my 5-year-old granddaughter in kindergarten, the first book, and she loves it.
I appreciate that, too. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Hey, I'm worried about this Ray Moore thing.
How so? What worries you about it?
Well, the charges are serious, but how do you disprove something 40 years ago? And when you trot out Gloria Allred out, you have to have skepticism in there. But my worry is the so-called conservatives in Congress are going to fall prey to this and throw this man under the bus, and then they'll forever set a precedent for getting rid of conservative people that we might try to elect.
So you're afraid that if everybody stands aside and lets Ray Moore be thrown overboard, that the left is going to learn that all they got to do is come forth and accuse somebody else, and that Republicans are going to start caving left and right. I can understand the fear, but not quite sure it's universal. One little closing thought on this transgender business, that you're not actually, your sex is not determined at birth. 77% of college-educated Democrats think that. Activists who support the transgender ideology. Did you know that there was an ideology to transgenderism? I don't know whether they use tubes. Don't. There's enough of this already, right? I've just acknowledged that it's a practice that but I don't know if it's specific to any group of people. But this, activists who support the transgender ideology claim that 0.35% of Americans are transgender. That would be a hell of a lot of Americans. 0.35%. 0.3%. A study of the 2010 census reported that only 1 out of every 2,300 adults had changed their name from one sex to the other. 1 out of 2,300 instead of. So once again, just as happened during the politicization of homosexuality, now we have an acknowledged transgender ideology, and an effort is underway to convince primarily young people, millennials, that transgenders, they're everywhere. It's as normal as you are. It's as normal as anything. And they're everywhere. And they prove that your gender is not determined at your birth, that it is a choice. One other story that is somewhat related. Story is from Hopewell, Virginia. The headline, Parents Angry Over Family Quiz Worksheet Given to Middle School Students. An online worksheet that was never meant for the children has parents at a Virginia middle school mad after a teacher mistakenly passed it out to the class. A teacher at the Carter G. Woodson Middle School assigned the family quiz worksheet Friday in a family and consumer sciences class, according to parents. The assignment began with some straightforward questions like, what do you call the father of your father? And what do you call the sister of your father? But the last 4 questions, there were 20 questions on the worksheet. The last, this is junior high now, middle school. The last 4 questions of the 20 took a turn. Question, what do you call it when a married person has a relationship with someone else? Answer, an affair. Question, what do you call a married man's girlfriend? Answer, mistress. Question, what do you call a much younger boyfriend of an older woman? Answer, boy toy. question. What do you call a much younger and beautiful wife of an older, wealthy man? Snerdley gets one of the four right. That's trophy wife. Now, these questions were posted online by a teacher at this middle school, but they were never meant for the students. They were meant for other teachers. Why? What other teachers don't know the answer to these four questions? Don't kid me. This was intended to be seen by the kids. Whoever did this wanted the kids to, for whatever reason. But the parents are outraged that this kind of thing was presented so that the students could see it. They're outraged that teachers are even writing pop quiz. And this is a curiosity. I mean, you got a pop quiz, 20 questions. Why prepare one for faculty? I got a picture here, a graphic of the actual worksheet. You print it out, and then you fill it in by hand. And some kid got them all right. Some kid, maybe more than one answered them completely correctly. Okay, let's see. Let's swerve into Roy Moore. And then we'll do that will take us. I'll make the transition seamless into the Jeff Sessions testimony today before the House Judiciary Committee, because some of it is quite comical. The first accusations did not make Roy Moore resign. So now new allegations are coming forward. They're ratcheting up the charges, and now. It used to be the guy just likes young girls. He likes to be in their company, and he likes to smooch and this. But now the charges are matriculating, and they have become full-on sexual assault charges. If that doesn't work, I fully expect a charge of rape to eventually be forthcoming. Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore is denying that he ever met the woman who on Monday accused him of sexually assaulting her in a diner parking lot in 1977 when she was an underage teenager. He called her allegations absolutely false, despite his apparent signature in her Haskell yearbook. I can tell you without hesitation, this is absolutely false. I never did what she said I did. I don't even know that woman. I don't know anything about her. Moore told reporters during a short presser with his wife, who was standing by his side. His remarks came after a press conference with the lawyer Gloria Allred earlier on Monday, where Beverly Young Nelson became woman number 5 to publicly accuse Moore of sexual misconduct when she was a 16-year-old Haskell student. What happened was that she was working at the diner. Her shift ended. It was late. Her boyfriend was supposed to pick her up, but he didn't show, or he was late. And so Roy Moore said, "Hey, I'll be happy to take you home." So she got in the car, and he drove around the back of the restaurant, the back of the parking lot, parked it, locked the doors, and then made moves on her that equaled sexual assault. She says she couldn't get out. Now, I don't want to get into the nooks and crannies of every allegation here, but I'm going to tell you, this 1977, somebody tell me, in 1977, were there child locks on the door? In other words, could the driver push a button that would make sure all windows and doors could not be opened? Was that present? Because she says she couldn't get out. But did child locks, were they in 1977 vehicles? I'm trying to, what I had in 1977, I had a Pontiac. Well, it was a pretty big Pontiac. The car I had didn't have them in there. But I didn't drive every car that's out there. You know, the button on the driver's side where you can flip it and nobody can open a door. It's to protect kids from opening windows and doors when the car's moving. But if that wasn't present, Child locking mechanisms have been required since 19 contain. Okay, they've been in the automobile since the early 80s. They've been required. Is that what you're saying? Required in automobiles since the early 80s. Cars have been built with the feature, not required. Cars began to be built with the child lock feature in the early 80s. So it might be safe to assume that the door she was sitting next to, she could have unlocked it. Unless Roy Moore had a special custom lock called the female anti-escape lock on the passenger side of the front seat of his car. Well, she's being she says she's being overpowered. I mean, his hands are around her neck. Isn't that right? Now, every mainstream media article about Moore now includes this phrase, became the fifth woman to publicly accuse Moore of sexual misconduct. But I don't think that's quite right. I think only one woman has accused him of sexual misconduct. The other three women claim he dated them or tried to. They specifically said that he didn't do anything sexual. But every news article now includes the phrase, became the fifth woman to publicly accuse Moore of sexual misconduct. Why? See, this is the thing about this story, that there's just so much, without even commenting on Moore's guilt or innocence, it's so obvious what's happening here. It's just patently obvious. They don't want this guy in Washington. Nobody wants this guy elected anywhere near either political party. The establishment doesn't. To hell with what the people of Alabama have done voting-wise. To hell with what the voters of Alabama do want to happen. That doesn't matter. The parties do not want this guy anywhere near. The latest is, believe this, apparently if the Republican Party of Alabama, after the election, if Roy Moore wins it, they can essentially say, you know what? We were not representing this. This guy is not a Republican. They can void the election outcome by simply claiming that he was not a Republican, or that they don't sanction the result because he's not a Republican or he doesn't represent whatever. If the party pulls out and does not allow Moore the identification, then apparently they can void the election and start the whole process over. So you've got McConnell responding to Bannon. There's no question that's a lot of what this is. But you've also got the swamp. Nobody in either party wanting this guy anywhere near at Washington, D.C. And it doesn't matter what the voters want. It doesn't matter. Just on the basis of allegations, it doesn't matter. Because there isn't a conviction, there isn't without a doubt proof or any of that. It's just that they don't want this guy anywhere near there, and that's what they're going to make happen. And this is a microcosm of what they're trying to do to Trump. They're essentially trying to say Trump is not fit, Trump is not worthy, Trump is not justified, Trump is, and there's a coup that's been underway to essentially disregard the duly constituted presidential election of 2016. I take a break. We will be back. Much more straight ahead. Don't go away. Sustainable talent on loan from God. Rush Limbaugh, America's real anchorman and America's truth detector. Here behind the golden EIB microphone, Senate GOP campaign chairman, Moore should be expelled if elected. This is Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado. He's chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Look, there's one of these in the House and Senate. There's one for the Democrats. In the House, it's the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee. In the Senate, it's the Republican Senatorial Campaign. And there's always a different guy every election cycle that's nominated to head up the effort. And his one job is to get every Republican possible elected to either the House or the Senate. There's nothing illegal about it. There's no funny business about it. It's not something that only one party does. It's like a pack, that they run themselves. And the guy running the Republican version of this in the Senate, Cory Gardner, said that Roy Moore should be expelled from the Senate even if he wins. And what that means is that the Republicans will kick Moore out if he wins. But don't talk about it, because that might just make more people vote for him. So they're trying to keep this quiet. I'm kind of blowing that to smithereens by announcing their intentions here, because they are worried about blowback. Not because there's so much support for Moore, but because there is so much anger at the Republican establishment right now that denying them what they want is a significant motivator for Republican voters. Now, here's the story about the local GOP in the state of Alabama. On Monday's broadcast of Fox News at night, Alabama Secretary of State John Merrill said the Alabama Republican Party can formally pull its support for Moore. And if that happens, and Moore still gets the most votes, the election would be null and void. This guy said that Moore could withdraw from the race, or the state Republican Party could formally pull its support. That's all it would take. If the Alabama Republican Party formally pulls its support by filing papers, we no longer as a party support Judge Moore, then if he wins, the victory is null and void. Did you know that? Well, it is. Merrill further stated that if that happens and Moore receives the most votes, quote, our election would be declared null and void and Governor Ivey would have to call another special election and we would start the process all over again. And, of course, what does this mean? It means, so what? The will of the people. So what? What the voters say. Votes don't matter to us. If we don't like the guy and we formally renounce our support, the votes don't matter. These are Republicans. So no matter what the real stories are here and no matter what the evidence is, these guys, these people on the Republican side are making it clear they're going to prevent this guy from ever being seated in the United States Senate. Did you know that before 1992, when a lot of this was going on, that Judge Moore was a Democrat? You didn't know that? How about all these people now? Oh, yeah, everybody here knew about Judge Moore. Oh, yeah, hey, man, good old boy, we known about Judge Moore for long. While he was a Democrat. Nobody said a word. When he supposedly was attracted to inappropriately aged girls, he was a Democrat. For what it's worth. Okay, we're still going to go there. The Jeff Sessions testimony today, but I can tell you this. There's massive disappointment in the drive-by media. There were no earth-shattering occurrences. He didn't trip up. He didn't say anything that gave anybody anything on the Russians or collusion. Massive disappointment for the Democrats. They wanted a bombshell out of Jeff Sessions today. They didn't get it. But we'll still go there when we get back. Greetings, my friends, and welcome back. Fastest 3 hours in media, sustainability, and 3 hours each and every day here on the EIB network. Telephone number, if you would like to be on the program, 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushmo@eibnet.us. I want to start here with, I mentioned at the top of the program that the drive-bys, there's so much sexual harassment going on. So much of it surfacing now. And the vast majority of it is being done by Democrat guys. Harvey Weinstein, the Hollywood left. You remember Nina Burley? You remember who she is? Well, Nina Burley is the Time magazine reporter who actually wrote a piece promising Bill Clinton a Lewinsky as thanks for keeping abortion legal. Now, if you're a Hollywood guy and you read that, what are you going to think? All you got to do, I mean, here's a woman promising the president a Lewinsky. All you got to do to get one of those is to be pro-choice. Bammo! Every guy in Hollywood automatically pro-choice because of what it might eventually mean. Endless Lewinskys by appreciative Hollywood women. So all of these charges, all of these instances of the abuse of women, sexual abuse of women, sexual harassment, even rape, look at who the vast majority of these guys are. They are dyed-in-the-wool, not only liberal Democrats, they are avowed, very public feminists, aren't they? And it's becoming now hard to not notice that. Now, one of the reasons I think the drive-bys are so all over Roy Moore is because they finally got a Republican in this game they can report on. It has to have been tough. Folks, you got to understand something. It has to have been so hard for these drive-bys to report on these Hollywood people because these Hollywood people are their heroes. Remember, all you have to do is act in a farm movie and you're an agriculture expert. You can get a guest slot on any cable news show as an expert in whatever subject you have acted as a character in, either in a play or a movie. It's the most amazing thing. You see it all the time. So an actress will portray, let's say, Queen Elizabeth, who is still alive. The actress becomes an immediate expert on Queen Elizabeth. What would the Queen have done had this situation arisen back in 1975 with the Queen? And the Hollywood actress has an answer for it, even though she hasn't a clue. So we have phony false sources as source authorities. We have amazing irony and hypocrisy. All of it on the left. So much so that it's hard now for the drive-bys to avoid the elephant in the room. Now, Judge Moore gives them an opportunity to go after a Republican in this. But let's face it, up until Judge Moore, there haven't been any Republican guys that have been in the crosshairs of all this sexual harassment and rape stuff. Right? Well, I mentioned at the top of the program, they're now getting nervous because there's the elephant in the room out there, and that's Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is the one Democrat who has not been held accountable. And quite frankly, just the opposite. Bill Clinton is a guy who has become the star of the Democrat Party. Bill Clinton's resume was enhanced with every one of these reports of a woman accusing him of sexual harassment or abuse, or that he had had affairs and cheated on the lovely and gracious Hillary Rodham Clinton. Nothing stuck, nothing hurt. He just got elevated higher and higher and higher. Well, the drive-bys think there's a problem, and Jake Tapper epitomizes it here or acknowledges it. Audio soundbite number 1. You know, they threw Weinstein overboard, and now it's gotten to the point that they're going to have to throw Bill Clinton in this if they're going to attack Roy Moore, and if they're going to attack all these other guys in defense of women. They can't avoid Clinton any longer. Here's how they're going to do it.
Maybe it's the Southern accent that reminds me of this, but the accusers of Bill Clinton back in the 90s were never given the credence and treated with the same respect that these women are being treated. And I think that there is something to be said about how society has evolved since then. But in addition, it's hard not to look back at that period and think, you know what, the media treated those women poorly.
No. No. Don't believe that this is being done because of justice. And don't think there's any desire here to get it right. This is like everything else in the drive-by media. It's an opportunity. The question you have to deduce and answer is, what is the opportunity here? Notice maybe it's the Southern accent, he said. That reminds me of this. But the accusers of Bill Clinton back in the 90s were never given the credence and treatment with the same respect the women today are getting. And maybe that means our society's evolved. Doesn't mean the society. It just means that you guys were never going to do anything to harm Bill Clinton. And neither were the feminazis. But the Clintons are becoming passé. We've gotten to the point now where the Clintons are fast becoming yesterday's news. That's what this means. That's the only reason this is being done. Well, no, there's two reasons. But the reason here is that Clintons are getting older and they're less powerful, and other Democrats want them off the stage. It's not because they think they need to equalize the scales of justice. And so, his guest on this program, this happened last night, the lead with Jake Tapper, who spoke speaking with Amanda Carpenter, who's the former communications director for Ted Cruz, and to Van Jones about the latest charges against Roy Moore. And after Tapper's comment you just heard about Bill Clinton's accusers, here is Amanda Carpenter.
What I am concerned about now is that I see a lot of Republicans bringing up people like Senator Kennedy, Clinton, other people that did have previous acts of sexual misconduct, almost as a way of saying, well, they did it, we can too. Appeals to hypocrisy do not work for a party that has no moral core. And we do have a problem now because we have elected a president who has his own accusers. And so we're all going to go back through history, and there's a lot of reckoning that needs to be done.
And there you have the reason why Jake Tapper in 2017 on November the 13th decided to join the circus of holding Bill Clinton to account, not because of justice, but because in order to actually shift the blame to Trump, you have to touch on Clinton. And touching on Clinton is a way to actually move this to being about Trump and not Clinton. So you see, we realize now that the media treated Clinton's accusers badly in the 80s. Jake Tapper. We realize that. We the Southern accent or something, but we realize it. So now is the time of reckoning for Trump. And they go and get Amanda Carpenter, who worked for Cruz, to actually make the point for him. Here's Jake Tapper after what you just heard Amanda Carpenter say.
President Trump has been abroad, but it is a tough place for him to be, because even if he wants to distance himself from Roy Moore, and even if he finds this reprehensible, then the question becomes, well, why believe these 5 women on the record and not these 15 on the record who will make these allegations about you, Mr. President?
It is a big problem, I think, for him and for the Republican Party. And that's, I think, one of the things that you're going to see when he comes back is that some of the kind of the ducking and jiving and getting away with stuff is he's got a much more narrow window on that kind of behavior now. And I think he's going to actually have to think very carefully about how to handle it.
Okay, so you see where we are now? We got women we didn't even know of stepping forward and accusing Democrat guys, Hollywood stars that we all do know of some of the most reprehensible, mean-spirited extremists and perverted sex acts and harassment. And all of a sudden it becomes an issue about Donald Trump. All of a sudden now this is about Trump? Trump's the one that's got to come up with answers? Trump's the guy whose field of operational ability has been narrowed here? Trump has kind of been shucking and jiving and getting away? What do you mean getting away with this stuff? You mean he was elected president despite every effort you people made to destroy him? So you have the NBC Access Hollywood video. You've got some of these other women that have popped up. And you have to admit that when women popped up about Bill Clinton, you attacked the women. You called them trailer trash, or you put people on the air from the Democrat Party who did. You facilitated the destruction of the Clinton accusers. But now all of a sudden, it is Donald Trump who's been shucking and jiving and getting away with this stuff? No. Donald Trump hasn't gotten away with anything. Donald Trump has overcome some of this stuff. He got away with nothing. Bill Clinton got away with it. Am I making too fine a point here? How did Trump get away with it? What do they mean by got elected? In other words, Trump was able to snooker them. Trump was able to withstand all of their assaults and got elected. That means he got away with it. Bill Clinton got away with it. Harvey Weinstein got away with it for all of those years until something happened. And every one of these other Hollywood got away with it for decades. So you see how this is manifesting itself. This is all being done so that they can change the focus of improper sexual behavior to Donald Trump. And they think they have to dump on Clinton in a way in order to have credibility when they get Trump. Now, I want to take you back October 9th, 2016, CNN, debate night in America. This is pre-debate coverage. Jake Tapper speaking with Trump's reporter Kayleigh McEnany about Trump's press conference with Juanita Broaddrick. Remember what Trump did? At one of the press conferences, he had Juanita Broaddrick, Kathleen Willey, and Paula Jones. And he was threatening to invite them to one of the debates to sit in the front row and to irritate Hillary. And you remember how we all loved that and thought that was a smart move, a slick move, very creative move? Okay, so that's what this soundbite is about. Jake Tapper says to Kayleigh McEnany, how many voters does this add to Trump's voters? I mean, I believe in all the people who know these stories, who feel passionately about these stories, are already solidly in Donald Trump's camp. He doesn't need to bring up Juanita Broaddrick, Kathleen Willey, and Paula Jones. So even back in 2016, CNN's position here was, you don't need to embarrass Bill Clinton, for crying out loud. Donald Trump's already got these people. What are you trying to do here? And here was how Kayleigh McEnany answered that.
You know who doesn't know these stories? It's the millennials. It's millennial women. 1 in 5 women on a college campus are the victims of sexual assault. And Hillary Clinton tweeted out a year ago, every survivor of sexual assault deserves to be heard, believed, and supported. For her to put out a statement right now calling it a stunt when 3 women have the courage to take the national stage and before all of this country share their stories of sexual assault. That is sick, Hillary Clinton. Did they not think through this isn't a stunt? Ask Juanita Broaddrick if this is a stunt. Ask these women if it is a stunt. It is courage. These women are courageous, and we need to recognize that.
Right, okay. So the answer there is just a home run, because Hillary was tweeting out, you know, every woman deserves to be believed. And by the way, everybody's saying about Roy Moore. Every woman deserves to be believed. But for Hillary Clinton to say it when she destroyed the women that came forth. But Kayleigh McEnany reminding CNN, well, these millennial women don't know it. And they didn't. They didn't know about Bill Clinton and the Lewinsky situation. They weren't taught it. And if it was mentioned, it was all taught as what a great President Clinton was, how he was able to withstand these cheap shot attacks from the Republicans. He was such a great guy, beloved by him. That's what they were taught about Bill Clinton. August 17th, 1998, Washington, White House, Bill Clinton. This is his testimony before the grand jury in the Ken Starr investigation. During the Q&A, an attorney for the prosecution, Solomon Weisenberg, and Clinton have this little back and forth.
Monica Lewinsky says that you used a cigar as a sexual aid with her in the Oval Office area. Would you be lying? Yes, no, or won't answer?
I will revert to my former statement.
That Clinton's eyes kind of got a little buggy there at that question. Monica said, I used a cigar for sex aid, right? You mean, was that before or after the tubes? I don't remember. I'll tell you what, I'll revert to my former state. So this is what is being done now. In order to take all the Weinstein news and all of the news, all these other guys, and shift it to being about Donald Trump. Roy Moore helps do that because he's a Republican about whom this stuff's being said. And the media gets to wipe their hands clean. Yeah, we admit we didn't really listen closely to the women. We've learned our lesson, and now every woman saying whatever she's saying about Trump, we are listening now, and that's what they're hoping to accomplish now is tie Trump to Roy Moore, and we will be back after this. Mechanicsville, Virginia, as we head back to our sustainable phone lines. This is Tom. Great to have you on the program. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Rush. How are you, sir?
Fine and dandy. I'm glad you called.
Oh, what an honor to speak with you, sir. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'm talking to you on my flip phone from old school, but I love it. But I want to ask you a question. How do they get by with all these accusations? Why can't these women file a suit for sexual harassment, and then they be given the credibility to talk?
Well, because this actually is a good question. It's not a legal procedure. It is a political procedure that has been practiced and refined by
the Democrats.
That's right. That's right. Way to fill in the blank on there. The Democrats, the Democrat Party and the drive-by media. This is probably page 2 of their playbook, how to destroy Republicans.
Well, I mean, I just don't understand why, if they're getting all these people, why don't we go the same route against them and play that game if we've got to play that game?
Well, you just heard Amanda Carpenter say that we can't do that because we have Trump. See, we can't go out there and start blaming the Democrats for being perverts and reprobates because we have a president in our party who is. That's what she said. And so we can't, we don't have any moral authority to attack pervert Democrats.
Well, I'll tell you what, maybe we ought to get off our morals a little bit and play the game.
Well, this has long been, if not an actual voiced philosophy of the Republican Party. It's often been the way that they've operated. The Republican Party has always been the party of announced and vocalized family values, and all it takes is one minister to have an affair. And there goes the whole idea of family values. It busted up for the whole party. Jimmy Swaggart out there, not Jimmy Swaggart, Jimmy Saulharger, whoever. I have sinned before you. And that's it for the Republican Party. No more moral authority to go after reprobates like Weinstein and the rest of them on the Democrat side. So the Democrats get away with it because Democrats never tell people they care about family values. Because they don't. Unless you redefine what a family is. You can choose your sex. You can choose your family. You can choose your borders. Choose whatever. But you see, the Democrats are being highlighted this week. Not so much elected Democrats, although Bob Menendez has the same charges against him as a Democrat, and he actually is on trial, and you can't find a word about it in the drive-by media. And we are back. Okay, the Jeff Sessions hearings today before the House Intelligence Committee. Now, I have to tell you, I watched some of this during the breaks, and I'm going to be really upfront. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to have these various members, and most of the ones that I'm talking about are Democrats, who apparently had no problem whatsoever illustrating their complete ignorance of the U.S. Constitution. For example, one Democrat was asking Sessions if he would have the guts to prosecute Trump for expressing an interest in any investigation. Because, you know, that's unconstitutional, Mr. Attorney General. That's a violation of president cannot do. It's not. The president runs the Justice Department. The president is entitled to know anything going on. It may not be politically correct, but he can. He can ask for any bit of information he wants and be given it. But here you had a Democrat claiming that Sessions didn't have the guts to prosecute Trump in such a circumstance. Just sheer illiteracy of the United States Constitution. And that doesn't even talk about Sheila Jackson Lee. I mean, it's embarrassing. You know, we talk about what kids in school today are learning and what they think. My friends, some of these elected members of our Congress are so ignorant of the founding documents of this country that it is scary. They just make it up, whatever they think is or is not constitutional. And with Trump, most everything is unconstitutional that he's doing. And then they badger Sessions in a way that most judges would not even permit it. Because they ask him questions that he can't answer. If he answers one way, they accuse him of lying and hiding information. If he doesn't answer, they accuse him of stonewalling and not knowing or hiding something. And then most of their questions had innuendo that he's lying about the Russians and that he did collude and that he knows Trump colluded, but he has the guts to say so. It was a spectacle. It is ignorance. It's stupidity on parade. We have a little bit of it. We'll start here. This is the question from John Conyers. Conyers had a list of questions. He could barely read them. And he tried to get Sessions. These are all yes and no. I just want to know yes and no. Did you beat your wife before you left for the hearing today? When you talked to the Russians about colluding, did Hillary Clinton's name come up positively? Or stupid questions like that. And Sessions, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking me, Congressman. And Conyers will get frustrated and accusing him of stalling. But here is one of Conyers' questions. Are you recused? Are you recused from investigations that involve Secretary Clinton?
I cannot answer that yes or no, because under the policies of the Department of Justice, to announce recusal in any investigation would reveal the existence of that investigation. And the top ethics officials have advised me I should not do so.
Oh, that didn't sit well with the Democrats. All we want to know is if you recuse yourself from Hillary. Have you recused yourself from anything to do with lawbreaking? Have you recused yourself from anything that might have to do with anything Trump did in a gambling casino? They've been asking all these asinine questions. And it's all been one giant trick, attempted trick. Jerry Nadler, Democrat, New York. Did Mr. Papadopoulos mention his outreach to the Russian government during that meeting?
He made some comment to that effect, yes, as I remember after having...
I asked for yes or no. I don't have time.
Yes, all right.
There are reports that you shut George down, unquote, when he proposed that meeting with Putin. Is this correct, yes or no?
Yes. I pushed back. I'll just say it that way because it was...
yes. Your answer is yes. So you were obviously concerned by Mr. Papadopoulos' connections and his possibly arranging a meeting with Putin. Now, again, yes or no, did anyone else at that meeting, including then-candidate Trump, react in any way to what Mr. Papadopoulos had presented?
I don't recall.
Now, there's a technique here the Democrats obviously have settled upon. Every question, yes or no. Conyers did it. You just heard this guy, Gerald Nadler, do it. Sheila Jackson Lee tried it. Yes or no? Just yes or no. I don't have any time. The Republicans aren't giving me enough time. This is a rigged hearing. We don't have time here on the Democrat side. I don't have time. You don't speak fast enough. You lie. Just yes or no. And that's what he was up against all day here. The next question, Sheila Jackson Lee, these young women have accused this individual, Roy Moore, who's running for a federal office, of child sexual activity. Do you believe these women?
I have no reason to doubt these young women.
And with that in mind, if you believe these young women, do you believe Judge Moore should be seated in the Senate if he wins? And would you introduce investigations by the DOJ regarding his actions?
We will evaluate every case as to whether or not it should be investigated. This kind of case would normally be a state case.
And we have time for one more. This is Sheila Jackson Lee asking Sessions about his previous testimony in the Senate on Trump campaign contacts with the Russians during the campaign.
Do you want to admit under oath that you did not tell the truth or misrepresent it, or do you want to correct your testimony right now?
You're referring to my testimony at confirmation?
Before the Senate Intelligence Committee, my time is short, and I have two more questions, please.
Well, I'm not able to respond because I don't think I understand what you were saying.
I'm asking your Intelligence Committee testimony. Do you want to change it where you indicated you had no knowledge of involvement of the Trump individuals involved in conversations regarding the Trump campaign Russians? And Mr. Miller supported Mr. Trump's press conference where he said, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you'll be able to find the 30,000 emails. Do you want to change your testimony that was where you said I have no knowledge of any such conversations by anyone connected to the Trump campaign regarding Russians involved in the campaign? That was a testimony on June 13th.
I'm not able to understand.
All right, let me move forward.
It's a comedy. The woman's a joke. There's no way anybody can answer this stupid. She didn't even know what she's saying. Her staff writes the questions for her, and she rehearses it and makes sure she speaks loudly so it sounds like she's projecting with confidence. But this is a joke. And here we're back to the same. I'll never forget. This is one of the things. I'm jealous that Trump did this. It's the kind of thing that we do on this program. Hey, Russians, if you're out there, maybe you can find the 30,000 Hillary emails and give them to the CIA or something. We're looking real hard. We can't find the 30,000 emails. It was a laugh riot. Instead, the Democrats and the media think or accuse Trump of inviting the Russians to hack Hillary's server. And Sheila Jackson Lee is all over this still, and she's trying to get Sessions to admit that that was improper contact with the Russians and that Trump was encouraging it. And by the way, Stephen Miller, she didn't even know what Stephen Miller did. She doesn't know what he, just staff put his name in the question. They just put his name in there because they think it's negative. It's a joke. These people are insults to everybody's intelligence, and they are insults to the Constitution. But they're duly elected by their idiot voters, and so we have to put up with them being in there. But man, is it embarrassing. Look, this is not a court of law. These Democrats cannot direct any witness how to answer. A prosecutor can, a defense attorney can, judge can, but these guys, they can't control what Sessions says. And that's not the point. They don't even want him to answer. All they're doing is making speeches under the guise of questions. They're creating sound bites for their own reelection, or they're creating sound bites for the news. They're doing anything they can to blaspheme, impugn Sessions, or what have you. They're not interested in his answers to anything. The questions are designed to make him look guilty no matter what he says. Yes or no? Yes or no? They can't control how he answers. And, you know, the chairman could point that out now and then. Take a quick time out. Be right back after this. Just enough time to say thanks for being with us, my friends. Been a great day. Fastest 3 hours in media, sustainable and all that. And back here tomorrow, revved and ready to go, for which I can't wait. See you then.